Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. Man, it feels like it's been a while since the last time where we talked about all things legal. That one was featuring our very own Thomas Albert. Take a listen to that one if you missed it. I think it's going to be very helpful for those of you who have dealt with some legal things. And Thomas is going to, later on in the episode, just a little teaser, he's going to talk about another little legal issue and some things you might be able to do to help out as well. So anyway, we're re-energized and pumped up to be back with you. As promised, we're going to break out our newly minted Ultimate Crowdfunding Pre-Launch Checklist in the product of the week that we're featuring. We actually used this crowdfunding pre-launch checklist to great success and brought a project that was literally dead in the water, hadn't raised hardly any money, completely failed, relaunched it, and now it's a tremendous success. So you're going to want to hear about that as well. And after the show, we're going to give it away to you, all for free, no catches, nothing at all. You're going to love it. We're going to show you where to download it, and you can start using it, print it off, and get prepared to take your next big idea to the next level. So hang in there until the end of this episode, and let's get started.
The Funded Today podcast is brought to you by fundedtoday.com. Funded Today is a premier marketing and video agency. From startups to crowdfunding to Amazon and beyond, Funded Today has helped their clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you'd like help launching or growing your business, visit www.fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.
Welcome back to the show. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And I just wanted to briefly remind you to download our Ultimate Crowdfunding Success Guide, not to be confused with our pre-launch checklist that we're giving today. That can be downloaded at fundedtoday.com/guide if you've not done so. It's beautiful now. We've updated it recently, so get ready for that. I think you're going to really like it. That's pretty much everything we know. All of our knowledge distilled into a beautiful little guide, soon to be book. So take a look at it. We think you'll love it. If you're like any of the hundreds of listeners who have already downloaded it, they're already reading it and putting it to use. Now, I want to just jump right into today's episode. The topic, the Ultimate Crowdfunding Pre-Launch Checklist. So to get started, Thomas, what's the idea behind this guide, and why did we create it? I kind of want to give a big overview before we kind of get into the nitty gritty. So this episode's going to follow kind of a pattern of, we're going to go through each of the items so you know exactly how to analyze the different things you're going to check off. But before that, I want to talk about why this thing came to life, what made us do it, and how we think it's going to be effective for you.
If you look at the most critical and important times of your campaign, it's the day you launch. Everything with your launch is going to impact and influence everything, whether the press picks you up, whether there's social proof, whether you get the traction you need. There's so many different things we've learned running more than 3,000 campaigns and raising hundreds of millions of dollars. If you knock out every single one of these, you're going to have an absolutely killer campaign. And we share this. And I think sometimes people might think like, why is Funded Today sharing all their knowledge? This can't be legit. And you actually were the one who taught me this, Zach, 5+ years ago. Remember when we were talking and you had your marketplace for courses, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
You said, hey, Thomas, I know you know paid media marketing really well. Do you want to put together a course and share that course? And I thought, yeah, I could, but then no one's going to want to hire. He's like, no, people will watch it and see your expertise. And then they'll be like, man, this is amazing. They might not still have the time. And so they'll hire you. And so I think in that same light, right? Whether people hire us or not, obviously, like that's great if people work with us. But if they don't, we want to see people bring their products to life. Or if they do work with us, right? This will help them that when they come and work with Funded Today, right? However they want to maybe engage with us, it's going to make their campaign that much better. So it's a win for everyone.
Oh,
regardless.
Absolutely. And like we've kind of always made our policy at Funded Today, I guess sometimes to our chagrin, but for the most part, we're very happy about by having this abundance mindset, this abundance mentality, believing that it's important to share what we know. It's important to kind of put our knowledge out into the universe. We've just had all kinds of amazing things come back to us, and it's always worked out for the better. So we're not trying to be maybe like other consultants who will kind of give you the big picture, the overview, the, hey, here's kind of what you need to do, or hey, do this. We don't have arrangements or agreements with affiliates or partners or anything like that. And so we're able to be real and genuine with you. And I think that kind of sets us apart from anybody else out there because we tell you exactly how it's done. Not because we're teachers, but because we've done it. And because we've done it, we know exactly what works and we know what's going to help you. And I think that's really a different way of going about things. And like you said just barely, Thomas, we're not holding anything back either. We could kind of give you just a little bit and then you'd still need us. We like to give you everything. And then if you need us, great. If you don't, great. We don't care. We're just out to help as many people as we possibly can. It's right in our code of ethics. It's right in our core values. We want to help a lot of people bring their next big idea to life. And so the ultimate crowdfunding pre-launch checklist, we think is everything you need to know, high level, low level, nitty gritty, literally check them off as you go along to succeed for your next big idea. So with no further ado, let's just kind of jump right into it. This is the 2019 edition. The question that we ask, what do you need to do before launching a crowdfunding campaign? And here are our recommendations. Thomas, take us away right at the top with My Personnel. What are we looking at there? And again, we don't have to go through all of these. This is going to be a PDF that you can download, that you can print off, and you can literally grab yourself a black permanent marker and check them off as you go along. We're going to talk about the high level points of each of these so you kind of understand what you're getting into. And then after the episode, you can download it and you can print these off and get ready and be prepared to launch your next big idea. So let's go through each of these points now, Thomas.
Yeah, the first point, and this is an interesting point. I saw a video, I think it was one of the general partners at a VC firm, and he shared that one of the things that he looks for when he's deciding whether to invest money into a new startup is, are the founders passionate about what they're doing, right? Is that their life's mission? In a similar note, although slightly different, is to see, are you trying to serve not yourself alone, but actually to serve the market, customers specifically, right? Are you actually trying to help people, right? Because I think if you have that passion, it's going to be this passion to create something great. And if it's just on you, like, oh, I want to make a quick buck, not that it won't work, it's just less likely because you're really not going to have the passion to go build a company. So again, that's an important point to look at. It's kind of the why of why are you even approaching or doing this? If it's just about the bottom dollar, it's going to be a lot harder. Not that it won't work, but it's harder.
One of the points that kind of stood out to me in this checklist was, and again, this one might sound a little self-promotional, but I think it matters. Our story works this way. We wrote it like this: I'm hiring competent specialists as needed who also passionately share my values and vision. I mean, Thomas, what's the story of Funded today? I'm working on the Rue Sport. I'm doing everything I know. What do? I look for the best Facebook specialist in the world, happen to find you, and the rest is history. That's the long story. That's exactly what I did. And by adding paid media to our repertoire with everything else we were doing, it created a tremendous success story and really a tremendous company from that point forward. So make sure you're looking at that. You can't do everything on your own, right?
No. Yeah, you have to build a team. And in terms of building a team, right, it's thinking broader than just yourself. And I've learned this, right? Over the last, I think, year and a half, 2 years, I've really learned the greatest success is always a team effort. If you think it's you, it ain't going to be. Like maybe like in the NBA, like you could say it's just you, right? If you're like the best player ever. But that's just not how it works, right? Like even Zuckerberg or others, they didn't get to where they're at. Yeah, they might be the prominent figures or the largest shareholders, but they didn't get there just by themselves. So it's always a team effort. And so to think broader, and in that light, the next point on the checklist is, are you as an entrepreneur more committed to success than any specific product or service? Now, that might seem kind of backwards to the first point, but the idea is an entrepreneur has to realize you win some and you lose not some, but probably most. Look at Bezos. Look at these others who innovate. You're not going to get it right every time, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. Like, it's totally cliche, but it's true. Like, failure is failing to try. Like, that is failure. And so if you're going to go and, hey, if it doesn't work, pick yourself up and try again, right? Like the song goes. So you just have to be committed to success. And if you have that drive, then you're going to be successful. And it might not be on this campaign or this business, but eventually you will have one if you are actually striving and going.
And that kind of fits perfectly into our next point on personnel. Just adhering to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's so easy as an entrepreneur to kind of think it's you against the world. And I felt that way many times as well, but it's so much better if you can see that long-term vision, because what you do today is going to affect you a year down the road, sometimes even 5 years down the road. Decisions we made at Funded today still affect us today, even years down the road. And so it's so important to seek those mutually beneficial transactions with everybody else you do business with. And it's important to start right, to do that right. Because if you don't do them right now, you're going to have lots of problems that you didn't even realize were problems down the road. Listen to us, trust us, we've been there. Go about it the right way. It's not good to make a quick buck when you can build something that's going to last a really long time if you just get that foundation right. I think that's so important. And along those same lines, I mean, while you're doing the golden rule to those you do business with, it needs to be the same way with your employees, your contractors, everybody else. We've had experiences where we didn't, and they still come back to haunt us. So listen to us, treat your people right, treat your contractors right, treat your distributors right, treat the platforms that you work with right. And in the end, it's better to be nice. It's better to treat people how you'd like to be treated, and it will come back to your benefit. In the end, you will feel very happy about doing this, even though it might feel like a loss. Like there's many times where if we would have screwed somebody over, it probably would have helped out Thomas and I a lot more. And we always go back to ask ourselves, well, technically the contract says this, but how can we we call it spirit of the law versus letter of the law. Letter of the law, contract. Spirit of the law, how would you handle this if you were the person having to deal with what is heaped upon them? And for the most part, obviously have your contracts in place, obviously be legal, incorporate your business, do all those other things. That's one of our checklists on this point. But most importantly, treat people the way you would like to be treated. It sounds stupid, it sounds simple, but if there's one thing I can tell you in business, it's that. If you treat people the right way, they're going to treat you better. People are going to like you. People are going to respect you. And you're going to have a business that lasts rather than just a fly-by-night type of company that ultimately you're going to have a bad reputation for. And in 2019, you don't want that.
Yeah. So that is great. And that's kind of more, I guess, emotional, more personal, more kind of your ethos, is it? Moving on is your product. And this is so critical. If you're launching a crowdfunding campaign, do you have a tangible product? Because if you don't, it's going to be a hard time selling something, right? If you're trying to promote a product that is digital, that's not physical, it's going to be incredibly hard. And there's people who come and they have an idea for an app or an idea for a SaaS. The problem with that, most people don't expect to pay some upfront amount for a SaaS. They're used to seeing what's the service, what's the value, let me try it for a month, and then I'll pay you a little bit every month. Or for an app, most people are used to getting an app for absolutely free. Or if they need to, it's a couple bucks that they pay for it. And so really, the things that we have found to be most successful or to have really any success are to have a tangible product. And again, that doesn't mean if you have an app, it's not going to work. We've raised, $100,000 or so for an app. I think it's the most funded app on Kickstarter. So there's still the possibility to do it, but there has to be something more or tangible on top of that.
And Thomas, playing off your point, and you've probably heard us talk about this, Funded Today Nation, on many episodes. Probably the episode where it first came to be was when we featured our Director of Client Specialist, Curtis Child, and we talked about how your product needs to be sufficiently new to the crowdfunding community on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or wherever you decide to launch. And the idea behind that is you can't launch a wallet on Kickstarter, a watch on Kickstarter. Again, I just use these types of things that are ubiquitous, essentially, if they're just like everything else that's already been out there. Sometimes, even if a product may already be out there, but it's never been done on crowdfunding, you can differentiate your product in a way that is unique from everything else that's ever been launched, specifically on the crowdfunding platform, say Kickstarter, then you have a very, very good chance of raising a lot of money. That probably, on the product side of things for this checklist, is your most important point. Is your product sufficiently new? Is it never been seen before on Kickstarter? If you can answer that question without bias and get 30 other people to agree they've never seen anything like it, who are also serial Kickstarter type backers, you got yourself a really good head start, and you can put a good check mark across that one.
And that's great, Zach. And the next point to that is it could be something new, but how much ubiquity is there, right? Does it serve a large portion of the human race, you could say, right? Their needs, their wants, because it could be something new, but it's like, let's say it's some little gadget for hockey sticks. It's like, that's not really going to appeal to a ton of people.
I love it.
Maybe the 50% of the Canadians who play hockey, some here in the States, outside of the States, I don't know how many people play hockey, right? So
50% of Canadians playing hockey, Thomas. I think you've offended our Canadian listeners. Isn't that like 99%?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the retirees is what I'm thinking.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, Thomas, you're absolutely right. Just because I said new to Kickstarter does not mean the ubiquity element needs to be lost. This better have wide and broad appeal and also never been seen before on crowdfunding if you want to have a huge chance of success. Love it.
Yep.
All right. There's a lot of things on this one that we just want to kind of briefly go over. There's something called an NNN agreement, and that's what you want to sign with your manufacturer to make sure they help you mass produce it. We link out to some examples of that in the guide. If you have any patents, it's sometimes good to file provisional patents, design patents, different things like that. And finally, I think it's important to talk about your product development along the way. I was just consulting with somebody last night, actually, who is bringing a pretty cool product to life. And I was telling him that he said, I've bought so many different parts across the internet, wherever he's buying them. And he's like, I've got a bucket full in my office that's, I can just reach my hand in there and scoop so many of them out. And I said, you got to take pictures of that. That's amazing. That's awesome. I love to see all the development. You've got to share that process with people so that they can get excited about your story and your journey, to realize this isn't just something you thought up and now you're trying to make money for it. This is your vision. This is your dream. This is your passion. And you have put blood, sweat, and tears into bringing this thing to life. Well, document it. And that helps us when we make your video and we design your page to give you a really strong start so that people trust you, so that they know you, so that they understand what they're getting into, since they're never going to see you in person, because we can use this so that we can help better market and sell your product. So keep track of that stuff.
And that point, Zach, I don't think could be stressed enough. You want to show the proof that you are actually in this to win it, and that you have committed the time, the resources, that you have the expertise, because you have to understand that on a crowdfunding campaign, people are relying on you and gauging, whether they realize it or not, whether you are going to have the capacity and the means to bring this to life, and what is the depth of quality that your product is going to have. So when they see many, many different prototypes, it's going to, whether they realize it or not, it's going to impress upon them that this is going to be an amazing product, right? It has taken that you have taken the time and the care to really make it something. And being able to put that in your video, being able to put that on your crowdfunding landing page, being able to use that for the ad copy or for the images can be powerful. It makes a massive difference.
And now don't stress. One of the other checkpoints on the product that you'll be able to check off is your product's form is maximally appealing, but your functionality is minimally viable. And that means that you don't got to do every single thing you've ever dreamed of. Get your product to do the main thing that you want it to do right. Make that prototype functioning. It's got to work. Kickstarter requires that. Indiegogo is now getting a lot more strict on things like that. And it's just good. If you can make something that's actually working and proven that you can make it work yourself before you sell it, that's going to help you so much to deliver on time. Because if you deliver on time, then you're going to create that trust and rapport with your backers, so that when you create all of the other features and all of the other future ideas you have, you're going to have that huge community and crowd that's going to quickly jump on board with your next big idea. So that is your product. And yeah, Thomas, go ahead.
And it's not necessarily bad. And this is so difficult because it's always hard to know where to draw the line. And as an entrepreneur, as a business person, you always think, oh, well, there's this element and there's this. People would like this or people would like that. 80-20 suggests there's only going to be a few core components that are really critical, that make up your value proposition and that are what interest people. So you got to focus on that and hone in on what that is. But if you don't have all the bells and whistles, you could even launch the campaign knowing if this takes off, then I'm going to actually have some additional tiers saying if we raise 250,000, then we're going to add this feature.
I love that.
You can always know that launch your version 1.0, create it, deliver it, get feedback, and then go do a 2.0 with the additional features. You don't got to include all the features out of the gate.
And that ties in perfectly to pricing, which is the next subset on our checklist. We've got several different elements that we want you to go through and check off here. But what Thomas hinted at is called stretch goals. And stretch goals are good and bad. They stretch you in the sense that if you raise $100,000, then we're going to make this product go in white instead of just black. Or then we're going to add this widget in addition to the widget that we promised. And hitting on what Thomas talked about earlier, the 80-20 aspect of your product. What's the 20% of it that's going to get 80% of the appeal? The best way to do that is to survey people. Ask people, hey, what do you like about this product? And then just let them freestyle, free response. Write it to you, talk it to you, and record what they're saying, and listen to all of the feedback. Once you've got 30 or so people who have said what they like about your product, you're going to hear recurring themes. Those recurring themes, that's your 80-20. And that's what you want to make sure you're emphasizing as you go about selling your product, because that's what your end users are saying they love about it. And you sometimes won't be able to understand that yourself. And that's why it's so important to survey other people to see what they like about your product, because you're too close to your product to necessarily understand. So again, stretch goals, you don't have to do them, but you can. You consider them. The reason you don't always do stretch goals is because stretch goals stretch you. And stretching you sometimes makes it harder to deliver. And you don't want to fail to deliver. And you don't want to be slow to deliver. Because when you do that, like we talked about earlier, reputation, golden rule. If you buy something and you tell somebody you're going to get it to them in November and you don't ship it to them until next November, how is that doing unto others how you would have them do unto you? And people are going to be forgiving. They're going to understand that you're a new entrepreneur. They're going to understand that stuff happens and unforeseen obstacles happen. But your job as a creator, as a crowdfunder, is to mitigate those risks as much as possible. So as you plan your stretch goals, take into account the extra added work and costs that they are going to cause you as you go about pricing your product. So that's kind of deep level pricing. Let's go a little bit more superficial on pricing and just start it off really quickly. Have you planned your reward packages featuring your core product plus price your options? Easiest way to do price your options, multi-packs. I think of Catherine Krug and Betterback. She sold her product for about $50. And if you bought two, then it was like $89. You saved a little bit of money. And that was her pricing. 1, 2, or 5, or 1, 2, 5, and 10. And she made it really simple. The core product was the reward. She didn't say donate $1 to support my campaign, because that's just not what people want. If you're going to do a crowdfunding campaign, give them your product. You love your product. You want the people backing your product to love it too. And that's what your core pricing should include. So Thomas, how do we actually pick the pricing? Where do we kind of get a little bit more detail into how we figure out how we want to price this thing before we launch?
That is such a dynamite to deal with, because unless people have dealt with all of the ins and outs of manufacturing and bringing a physical product to life, it is hard to know what the cost of something's going to be. And as best as possible, you need to estimate and consider your production costs, right, to manufacture. And that could vary according to scale, right? The more units that you produce, typically you're going to have economies of scale and you'll be able to get a lower cost, a discounted rate. And so depending on how many units you produce, and sometimes we run into situations where we work with creators and they said, hey, my price point in terms of my production cost was X because I was assuming we would sell 10,000 units. I'm not close yet. I'm in this pickle because I haven't even raised enough to go manufacture. And again, it can be kind of tricky, but you need to think that through. There's also the fees for the platform, such as Kickstarter and Indiegogo, which will take 5%. There's the credit card processing fees, which are another 3% or so. There's going to be your marketing fees, whether you run it in-house or with an agency like Funded Today. There's going to be issues perhaps where people's credit cards fell, and you'll have to work on collecting that. And you're also going to have to consider the cost for managing all of the shipment, all of the packing. And if you're doing free shipping, what is your cost for shipping? What costs are you going to need to incur for returns, for relevant taxes, and for anything else that's unexpected? For example, what if you go manufacture and then you find, oh, crud, this product is not shippable and you can't get your money back, or you didn't have something built in with your manufacturer, right? So those are some of the things you need to think about. Again, all of this is in the checklist. So if you're launching a campaign, you need to go and download this checklist because it will make sure you don't miss anything. I'll give a legal disclaimer. I suppose there could be something, but out of all the campaigns we've run, if you cover this, you've pretty much got all of your bases covered.
Yeah, this is thorough. And the reason Thomas kind of went through 5%, 3%, refunds, chargebacks, things like that is because he doesn't want you to have $1 million campaign and then have $800,000 land in your bank account after the 14-day waiting period when Kickstarter and Indiegogo releases your funds. And then you're like, wait a sec, I thought I did $1 million. Like, it's important for you to underpromise and overdeliver with yourself as well. When you do $1 million campaign, you might only end up having $100,000 profit. And that's perfectly okay. That would be a wonderful outcome, probably to most creators. So by planning for all of the things that are possible to happen, you're going to be much happier with the end result of your campaign. And you're going to know exactly how much you need to raise so that you can make this idea happen. If you don't do that, then you are going to run into issues. And that's kind of where all the trouble starts. And we don't want that to happen to you. So that is pricing in a nutshell. One thing I want to add on pricing, and this is one of those things we said we were going to give away that we sometimes said, well, should we give this away? One of the most powerful things Funded Today does is a good upsell. We basically message every single backer within the last few days of the campaign. So maybe 2-3 days left on a project, 48, 72 hours, right? You message all of your backers and you say, hey, I loved you so much as a backer. I know you got in at my early bird pricing discount. Here's the deal. How would you like to give one of these to your friend or your family member as well? How would you like to give this as a Christmas present? Got any birthdays coming up? Well, here's the deal. If you buy another one right now, I'll give you the same price I gave you before. When we do this, we get 10 to 20% more in pledges. So $1 million campaign suddenly has $1,100,000 or $1,200,000. $100,000 campaign suddenly adds another $10,000 to $20,000 in pledges. It's very powerful. It's important to do. But why does that relate to pricing? Because you need to make sure you're pricing it right so that when you offer this amazing deal, it's actually amazing for you too. And you haven't hurt yourself in terms of your margins or what you're going to need to be able to do to ship, fulfill, and deliver on this product. It's called an upsell, and you absolutely need to do it. If you want some help with that, our client specialist can help you go through some ad copy and different psychological triggers that we've done to great effect to raise millions of dollars, just applying this simple little principle. You got 1,000 backers, and those 1,000 backers suddenly contribute 10 to 20% more to your project, pretty much guaranteed. It's a beautiful, beautiful strategy, and it all starts with making sure you've properly priced your product. How's that for a tongue twister? Thomas, platform. What do we got to understand about our platform?
It's good if somebody has not dealt with crowdfunding, back to Kickstarter campaign, Indiegogo campaign, to go and create an account on both of those platforms and go explore the website, understand the community and the dynamic. And this doesn't need to take a lot of time, right? And you might go back a couple campaigns to kind of see how the process works. And even that is not critical. But again, you want to understand the culture and just kind of the process and how it works. And really, you're not going to understand the whole process, but to just understand those platforms a little are going to be important. And we recommend, we don't really care one way or the other. We just look at the numbers, and the numbers recommend that you should launch on Kickstarter if at all possible. And if for some reason you can't, then launch on Indiegogo. They're both good platforms. Kickstarter is just the better platform.
And that might be all we need to say on platform. Obviously, we got a whole episode on Kickstarter versus Indiegogo, so you'll want to listen to that. You will want to make sure you understand the rules of the platform too. We'll link out to Kickstarter's rules and Indiegogo's rules. They're pretty simple and pretty straightforward, but it's important to read them. Probably the most important rule that we talked about earlier in the product section is to simply understand that you need a working prototype. If you don't have a working prototype, you may run into issues. Even if Kickstarter Indiegogo approves you, down the road, you might have a lot of backers question whether or not this is a viable idea. And if you can't prove to them that it's viable, you run the risk of suspension. We don't want that to happen to you. So make sure when you launch your project, you actually have something that is functioning and working and doing what your video and your page says it's going to do, so you're not misleading your backers. Again, kind of going back to that golden rule thing. And it's going to require some more work up front for you, but I promise the more work you've done up front, the more money you're going to raise down the road. Okay, next topic, the timing. Why is this so important, Thomas? What are the key points on this aspect of our checklist?
It's interesting, and I actually want to expand a little broader to put this message out there. People need to expect at least 2 months to prepare for all of their launch, for the media, for their video, their page design, the pre-launch marketing setup. At a minimum, 2 months, ideally 3 to 4 months, right? it does take time. And I would add to that, Zach, and we were just chatting about this today, that you need all of that buildup. And what's interesting is about that buildup, you're not taking any sales, and then you have this little window where you generate all the sales during 30 days or 45 days, and then you're done. And it becomes a sprint during that time, but you've actually been preparing like a bear hibernating. That is a weird analogy, but that is an analogy kind of, right? You've been preparing for these 30 to 45 days, and then you execute. And so you need to understand there are time frames, and there's different time frames for different platforms, because we often will work with somebody on their crowdfunding campaign, then work with them on Amazon. And sometimes they're surprised that it takes us 3 months or 6 months to actually build everything out. And they fail to realize that if you look at your crowdfunding campaign, it wasn't 30 days. It was actually 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or maybe 6 months in the making, with the video, with the photography, with the page design, with the copy, with honing in on the ads. And it's no different. But for example, on Amazon, it's actually going to take you longer. Don't expect sales to be booming on the first day, right? Crowdfunding, like we just spoke about, on launch day, you need to be ready to come out with a bang. Amazon, for example, you want to have a strong launch, but it's going to be substantially different. And so understand the timing and don't be disappointed. Just realize there is cycles and seasons and different timing. And you need at least 2 months before you launch at a minimum.
We always say Kickstarter is a sprint. Thomas said that earlier. And then we say Indiegogo in demand is a marathon. And then maybe we could say Amazon and e-commerce is your...
my brother just did a 100-mile one. I forget the name of it.
Super marathons or something. One of our listeners is going to have to correct us on that.
Your pre-launch is not a super marathon, but it is work still.
Absolutely. So give yourself time. This is when you're preparing your email list. This is when you're doing your surveying. This is when you're making sure everything is working. You don't want to rush. So make sure all your ducks are in a row before you get going. And then a couple other points that we want to talk about. Plan around seasonal peaks. Coolest Cooler, obviously not really a success story. It's a success story in the sense that it raised millions of dollars. The delivery side of things, unfortunately, didn't get that pricing right. And so they're still struggling. But the timing was really good. Did you know that product actually failed the first time around? Failed miserably. All they did is launch it in the summer, and everybody thought, oh, wow, cooler, beach, party, fun, hanging out at the park. And that seemed to do the difference for them. So timing does matter for seasonal type products. Consider that as you launch. Even if you're not going to be delivering your product for months down the road when it's winter, it matters in the sense of the person's mind who is backing, how they feel in the moment psychologically. And believe it or not, that really does matter for certain types of products. A couple other kind of really nitty gritty points. Launch between a Monday and a Wednesday, except for around major American holidays. Launch in the morning in the USA, because that's where most crowdfunding backers are from. So make sure you take that into account wherever you live in the world. 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern is probably a pretty good time to launch. And then kind of for timing in terms of how long your crowdfunding campaign goes, 30 to 45 days. And then if you do an Indiegogo in demand, I would just keep extending for as long as Indiegogo is going to help you out and put you in newsletters. And that could be 60 days, 90 days. We've worked with some of our projects for more than a year, depending on the love that Indiegogo is going to give you and how well it's converting. And that is to prepare you for your Amazon. Eventually, you're going to want to move to Amazon, and by getting all of this funding up front and delivering a successful product, you're going to have a huge head start on Amazon, because all of your backers are going to love you and they're going to give you 5-star reviews on Amazon. And that gives you the catapult you need to start your Amazon success. And that's where the real business begins. And then finally, finish your product between Wednesdays and Fridays before it becomes evening in the USA. That matters as well, because you're going to get that last 48-hour push. Those last final hours are powerful. And if you can time all that stuff down to a science, it does lead to thousands of more dollars in pledges that we have tracked. And so all these things adding up are tens of thousands of dollars if done right. So make sure you do each of these things, even though perhaps individually they might not be as powerful. Collectively, they can make all the difference.
Yeah, at the end of a campaign, you might have $1,000 or $2,000 coming in pledges every hour or every half hour if it's a larger campaign. And you don't want those to be the sleeping hours at 2 a.m. here in the United States. Again, crowdfunding is international, but like Zach mentioned, the majority of crowdfunding backers are based in the US, and they tend to back more and have bigger wallets to spend more on this type of thing. So that is really something to focus on. But even the timing, while that's important, this perhaps may be one of the most important things, which is the presentation.
And we get asked all the time, hey, make my project $1 million. And what's the most important thing? And like Thomas said, definitively, we can tell you that presentation is more important than marketing. We can market the exact same product the exact same way, but simply just change the presentation, and it makes all the difference. We talk often about Shopbox 2.0 and Aaron Johnson's product. Literally, the only thing we did is make the presentation better. Exact same marketing led to hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales once we got things right. The product of the week that we're talking about in just a little bit, same type of story. We could probably even call that a new Shopbox 2.0 success story. Absolutely terrible presentation, cleaned everything up, and it made all the difference because the product was great. So how do you have a good presentation? Well, number one, you practice your sales pitch on real people until you understand how to sell your product best. Even if you're going to hire somebody else to sell your project, you need to know why your project is great. You need to be able to talk about those features and translate those features into benefits for your backers, for your customers. If you can't do that yourself, nobody's going to be able to do it. It's important for you to take ownership of that and then translate that ownership to the person who's going to be marketing your project.
And there's something so valuable about that process, right? To figure out what resonates with people and what doesn't resonate, and what are the hot buttons, and to really understand the psychographic and demographic of your ideal customer. And you don't get that unless you talk to people, you pitch your product, and see how they respond. And there's a corollary to this for those of you who like Tim Ferriss and the ideas he put out in the 4-Hour Work Week. He talks about, look, you launch a business, you need to be the customer support person at first before you hire anyone. So you know what questions people have, so you know how to answer the questions. And then after that, you can start to outsource it and give it to other people or give it to other team members. But you have to do the legwork first yourself. And then from there, you can have an effective operation across the board.
One thing I like about this particular subset of our checklist is the idea of using plain conversational language. And here's the kicker, that is friendly to a global audience. You're selling to everybody. Yes, most of your people are probably going to be English speaking, but it doesn't mean it's their first language, and it doesn't mean they understand the jargon that you might use. So be careful with technical jargon. Speak clearly, speak honestly, speak openly about your project, but try to describe your benefits in a way that can be aided through explaining and showing, selling with that emotional element, and kind of having reason as a subset of that. And the reason why this is so important, I guess I would say, is the elevator pitch, right? If you can't quickly describe your product in 30 seconds, which is probably even more time than you're going to have when somebody's scrolling through Kickstarter, then you're going to struggle selling your project. So for the most part, conversational language that is able to be understood by as many people as possible in a way that quickly gets to the point about your project, selling those benefits while showing the features. As we break down presentation a little bit, we kind of break it down by video and page. And again, there are a lot of things to check off here. We said this is a very, very thorough checklist.
I would say one of the most important elements is that your page is visually appealing and graphic heavy. It shouldn't have a lot of text. If you go and you look at the top crowdfunding campaigns, they have, it more is like an infographic. Not quite an infographic, but like an infographic. That it's easy for the eyes to scroll. There's bigger text, and you really have little to no text. That would be one of my biggest recommendations. And to do that requires you to have graphic skills, photography skills, etc. So again, whether it's in-house or whether you're hiring an agency like Funded Today, you want that presentation to be visually appealing. It's no different than you or I going to a website and the website looks like it was built in the early 2000s and immediately it loses credibility. Whereas you go to another site and you're like, oh, this looks slick. You don't even know anything about them, but you're like, this looks this design looks really clean. I bet they have a good product just because of how the design looks. And again, whether it's conscious or subconscious, we're making those judgments. It's going to have the impact on whether it looks legitimate, but then it also makes it easier to just scroll through and look and see the benefits of the product. That would be my number one recommendation. And again, there are so many points on my presentation and there's not enough time to go through them all. But again, that's my number one recommendation.
Yeah, we've really kind of itemized these as best we can. So just quickly kind of shotgunning through these. Proofread your page. Come on. Don't have bad spelling, grammar, punctuation. We see this all the time. It's crazy. It just kind of turns people off and it makes it seem like you're not confident. If you can't use proper English, if you can't spell your words right, if you can't do what's necessary at such a simple level, how do they expect you to be able to deliver your product? You don't want to convey that type of psychological confusion to your backers. So be careful with that. And then finally, I think you want to make sure that your project page is focusing on getting people to pledge. So as much as possible, don't link out to other websites. This is we always say the job of the ad is to get the click to come to your page. The job of your page and your video is to get the click to go to the shopping cart, to go to the order form. And if your page is telling people to go other places, well, that hurts your conversion rate. So make sure that for the most part, as you build your page and as you talk about in your video, you're directing people to take that next action, which is to click the green pledge or back now button so that they can back your project. Like Thomas said, there is a lot of stuff in presentation and we want you to go through the checklist. This is just an overview of everything. So if you do have any questions that we didn't cover in this podcast, definitely let us know. We'd be happy to give you a little more detail. But moving on to marketing now. What needs to happen in marketing, Thomas, at the highest level to kind of bring your project to life?
Well, first off, you need a marketing plan, right?
Very true.
And literally back in the day, the notion was you build a better mousetrap and the people will come, right? But that's not how it works. You have to bring your community. And we have a whole episode on this called the Triple F, the Friends, Family, Fools. That would be the number one most important thing that anyone could do to launch a new product. Unless you have an existing business and you already have an email list of however many thousands or tens of thousands of people, then you might be able to forego doing the Triple F. But go listen to that episode. But the Triple F, on launch day, you want hundreds of pledges for thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars to show that social proof that guaranteed are going to happen on day one. So that I would say is the most important thing. And then, of course, there's other things, right? Make sure you have your Google Analytics set up. Again, the checklist is going to make sure you don't forget to cross any T's or dot any I's, but you need Google Analytics set up. Otherwise, you launch and then you have $50,000 in pledges on your first day and you think, oh man, I don't know where these came from. I don't know if they were my friends or where they came from. And you're going to want to run Facebook ads. You might want to run some Google ads, depending on how successful your campaign takes off. And you're going to, like Zach said, make sure your marketing funnel is set up for your ads, to your landing page, to then encouraging people to click on the button to go make a pledge.
And then once you have all of that stuff going on, you better have some press. You better have somebody, whether that's you or an agency, that is reaching out to people, telling people how amazing your project is so that you can get featured in the news, so that you can raise money. A lot of these places have pay-to-play options. You might want to consider what your budget is so that you can pay to be featured in Gizmodo or TechCrunch or Mashable or wherever you want to be featured. You need to look for options there because that can lead to pledges. And sometimes spending the couple $1,000s those require can lead to tens of thousands of dollars in pledges. So you want to look into that. We call it public relations or earned media. You want to be doing cross collaborations. You want to be doing promotions that way. Again, we have podcast episodes on every single one of these. If you want to hear about public relations, you can listen to the episode with Samantha and Pascal. If you want to learn about cross collaborations, you can listen to the episode with Colton. Again, go through every one of these things. Like Thomas said, marketing is its own animal. And we've got probably 7 episodes of this podcast dedicated to that. But we want you to be able to have a checklist to summarize that you're doing all these things we've been talking about in these episodes. So that is marketing. Now, finally, the last one, and we save this for last for a reason. This is your service. What do you need to do to kind of wrap it all up, tie it all together, Thomas?
Your service doesn't make you money, but it builds your brand. It builds the reputation of what people think of when they think of your product, when they think of your business. And it's how are you responding to people? When people have questions, when backers have questions or comments, are you responding promptly? Are you responding in a professional manner? Are you being empathetic? Do you have a thorough frequently asked questions section at the bottom of your Kickstarter? And are you preparing to thank new backers, to recruit them, to be affiliates, to promote your product and your brand? And so your service is really your human touch and your interactions that you have with other people. And when your campaign is live, that can often be the most draining part of everything you're doing.
So often we have people say, oh man, I am so excited for this project to be over. It's been amazing how much work and effort I put in. But that work and effort you put in for your service will, as Thomas said, make all the difference down the road, because you'll have your frequently asked questions. You'll know the answers. You'll know how to handle the people that might troll you. As crazy as it is, it could happen to you. And you've got to be ready to have a defense for people who may have questions about your project and whether it's going to be as good as you say it is. And it's important for you to respond proactively to those so that people understand that you believe in this thing. You're going to stand behind it. And that is our ultimate crowdfunding pre-launch checklist. It's beautiful. You're going to be able to download it. And that is going to be at funded.today/checklist or fundedtoday.com/checklist. Just very simple. Should be able to download it for free right at that link. Take a look at it. Ideally, we want you to print this off, put it on your vision board, put it on your whiteboard, have it hanging on one of your computer screen monitors or just right there on your desk so that you can go through each of these until you have every single one of them checked off so that you can have a successful launch to bring that next big project to life. So thanks for listening. Thomas, it's our favorite time of the episode, products of the week. What do you got for us?
Oh boy, do I got a doozy for you. So my product of the week is called Lobster Bag. Kind of an interesting name, but it's a little ball, maybe like the size of a small lemon. And it's a plastic case. They call it the world's most compact key fob bag gadget. Within this little gadget, there's actually a bag that allows you to carry stuff. So you can carry a bag around with you pretty much all the time, but you don't even really notice it. And the story behind this, you're going to have to go check this out because this has a backstory that's so interesting. So the guy who created this, he's out of the UK, launches his campaign and hardly raises a few $1,000s. So he comes to Funded Today and he says, hey, I'd like help. And he decides to hire Funded Today. We launch his campaign and it is just cruising. And we followed all the stuff in the pre-launch checklist that we've discussed with you, as well as some other things that we add that aren't part of the pre-launch. And he's actually killing it and on track to raise about $300,000 US dollars for his campaign. When, lo and behold, Kickstarter suspends his campaign. And we're thinking, oh man, what's going on? And we've worked literally with over 3,000 campaigns, and there's hardly a situation we've not run into, although this one is new. But at the time, what had happened is we thought, okay, he must have ripped this product off from Alibaba. He didn't really create it. He did something he shouldn't have. And so that's typically what Kickstarter, why they're going to suspend a campaign. This creator is totally beside himself, so upset. And we tell him, hey, you got to push Kickstarter, get information. Why did you suspend my campaign? Can you provide any insight? So I want to read you an email that Kickstarter sent back to this creator of the Lobster Bag. Kickstarter said, hi there. Thank you for being in touch and apologies for our error. Based on your pre-sale website, we misunderstood whether or not Lobster Bag is currently available for sale. We are not able to unsuspend your project. However, we would invite you to resubmit and relaunch your campaign if you would like to. We know this isn't an ideal outcome for anyone. Please let us know if you have more questions. Best, Kickstarter Trust and Safety. So Kickstarter has a rule that if you launch a product, you are not allowed to be selling it during the duration of your Kickstarter campaign at that time, anywhere else. and that if you've ever previously sold it anywhere else, you're not allowed to launch a Kickstarter, because the idea of a Kickstarter is you're bringing a product to life. Well, if you've already sold it somewhere else, you're not bringing it to life. It already is alive. So basically, Kickstarter here admits, apologies for our error. Based on your pre-sale website, we misunderstood whether or not Lobster Bag is currently available for sale. So literally, Kickstarter, for whatever reason, went to Lobster Bag's website, and someone or some group of people at Kickstarter misunderstood their website and thought, oh, they're selling it, and literally just went and suspended the campaign without talking with the creator, without asking any clarifying questions, just straight up suspended the campaign. All of the funds were lost, and then all of the backers got a message saying it was suspended, and Kickstarter has a rule that they will not reveal why they suspend a campaign. So then, in a way, it tarnishes his reputation, and then he's left to relaunch. Kickstarter gives no clarifying message to any of the backers what had happened, doesn't put him in an email, doesn't promote him on their website, does jack nothing, and just says, sorry for our mistake. Sorry you were launching your campaign, and you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into this, and probably countless hours, and you've probably slaved over this, and put in maybe thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, and we freaking screw you over, and I'm sorry. Just relaunch. That's why we freaking hate Kickstarter. And I hope they listen to this message and realize, holy frick, we have a serious problem here. We don't care at all about our creators and the time and the effort and the energy they put into it. Like literally, absolute shame on Kickstarter. Absolute shame. Like it is so pathetic what they do. And with that, I would say, yes, Indiegogo is 100 times better than Kickstarter. So with that little rant, end of rant, I would say, if there's any attorneys who want to go and get an injunction against Kickstarter for what they've done, because this new campaign, the Lobster Bag, it's only going to raise probably 100,000, right? Because they've tarnished his reputation. They totally killed his momentum. And there's about $200,000 in lost pledges he's not going to be able to capture. And Kickstarter is notorious for not giving a frick about anybody and just canceling, or I should say suspending a campaign, not even having a provision to reinstate it. And so if there's others out there who are sick of this, which we are, this creator doesn't have the funds to do it, right? He's just some guy in the UK. But if there's some attorney who wants to go file a case against Kickstarter and take it pro bono, I don't see how you won't get attorney's fees and get an injunction against Kickstarter that they can't willy-nilly suspend campaigns. Like, please reach out to us. Send an email to thomas@funded.today or zach@funded.today, and we can get you in touch with this creator. But anyway, with that ran over, go check out the Lobster Bag. It is a cool bag.
Help him out, seriously. I mean, he's gone through hell and back, and we feel terrible for him. And I can't add anything to what Thomas has said, but it's a terrible, terrible situation. And it's honestly asinine that Kickstarter even has the ability to do what they did there. So in that light, my product of the week, this is a really good project. It was one of the most popular projects on Kickstarter, but we have reason to believe that Kickstarter is playing games with this one too, believe it or not. They were one of the most popular projects. They were one of the most magical projects in terms of Kickstarter's rankings. And for whatever reason, Kickstarter has not yet revealed. The creator is extremely frustrated, another really good creator. And their project is not being ranked or listed as higher, and nobody really knows. So we have some emails into Kickstarter. Perhaps by next episode, we'll have some more details on this one. But the project is called Pell Blue, and these are lithium polymer USB rechargeable smart batteries. And no, this has never been done on Kickstarter before. And I think that's why it's raised over $200,000 and counting from over 3,000 backers. Huge success story. These guys are based out of Hong Kong. And the part I like most about this battery is, number one, it's green. 10 million batteries are thrown away every single day. One pack of these, they can replace 4,000 general alkalines. I'm huge into replaceable batteries, or non-replaceable rechargeable batteries. I use them all over my house as much as I can, and I'm definitely going to be using Pell Blue now as my rechargeable battery of choice. The part I love most about Pale Blue, though, that perhaps no other battery's ever done, these guys have a micro USB port right in the battery. So when you charge them, you literally just hook them into your phone or a typical charging station. So you don't have to buy an extra accessory. You know how normally you have to kind of put the batteries into the little chargers and then plug them into the wall? Not these. The little batteries themselves have a little micro USB slot and they charge right up. So amazing, amazing product. Obviously, thousands of people love them.
It's crazy, Zach, that nobody else has created this sooner, right?
Yeah,
because
really
it
is.
seems so obvious.
Yeah.
And with so much waste of batteries, right? And pollution, it's like, why did no one think of this? And again, it's such a small tweak, but then it makes it so usable.
Yeah. I mean, they did exactly what we say. Look at everything that's out there and say, well, what else can we do to make it better? And that's what Pale Blue did. And you know what I love most about Pale Blue? Our very own Devin and his team designed the video. We've done this one start to finish. So this is Funded Today's work, and it is extremely successful across the board. We love this product. And even despite Kickstarter absolutely hurting this product for who knows why. I mean, 3,000 of their backers love this product. Their community. If I go to the community tab on Pale Blue, get this, this is absolutely fascinating. The community on Kickstarter loves this product, meaning people who have backed hundreds of other Kickstarter projects are also backing this project. You've got backers from Singapore, London, Sydney, 1,500 backers from the United States, 180 from the United Kingdom. Guess how many new backers? Only 390 new backers. 2,906 are returning Kickstarter backers. So why is Kickstarter punishing this project? You tell me. I don't know. And it's still raising tons of money despite the punishment, because that's what a good product will do. We love Kickstarter. We wish they'd get their act together. And hopefully this podcast episode serves as a reminder to who Kickstarter truly serves. And it's the creators that are bringing wonderful projects to life that actually make their platform amazing. And they've got it all backwards. So that's our episode. That's our project of the week. Check out Pale Blue. Check out Lobster Bag. Support them. Help them out. And again, what did you like about this episode? What do you want us to rant about next? Who do you want us to bring on as a guest? And what's been your favorite episode so far? I really want to hear from you. We're like 33 episodes deep now. So let us know what you love, what you hate. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us, support@funded.today, or leave a comment on our website, funded.today/podcast. Give us a review. We read every one of them. Those kind of make my day. Doesn't matter that we already have hundreds of 5-star reviews. We love to hear and read each new review. I read every one of them. They really keep me motivated, and I'm sure they do the same for Thomas. And until next time, remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.